Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Empower Hour. We have a great call planned for today. Hope you're excited to get empowered. So let's see. To open us in prayer, Lena, are you able to open us in prayer tonight? That's okay if she's not. Christelle, how about you? Are you able to open us in prayer? That is also a no. Nathan, come to my rescue. Will you open us in prayer?
Of course.
Thank you.
Join me in prayer, everyone. Good morning, our dearest loving Heavenly Parent and true parents. We are starting this new week with an Empower Hour. I'm so glad I can be on this call. There's so much happening, and we're very blessed to support one another and channel our energy and pull it into one powerful force to work for True Mother. We hope that we can be here with our hearts and our minds and our spirits and know where we can put that energy and that outpouring of love once we leave this call in the next coming days in our lives. Thank you for this opportunity and for everyone who's preparing for this effort to make it happen behind the scenes and beforehand in the days and weeks of preparation that help make things like this possible. Please bless this time and all the people who are making the time and energy to be here. And we pray these things in our names, Nathan Bratcher and Elisa De Silva, a blessed central couple. Aju.
Aju. Thank you, Nathan. Also, Nathan, I don't know if you noticed, but you said good morning in your prayer. It's definitely not morning time.
I think it's probably a habit from Sunday service when I do prayers in the morning or something. I don't know.
No problem. We're all exhausted and making it work. So life is kind of a blur at this point. So we have a lot of great content for tonight. And to kick things off, I'm going to invite Ginny to open us up with some great hundoke.
All right, thank you, Kaeleigh. Nice to see everyone. I know it's a really busy time for students. I work with a lot of students. So I know it's finals are approaching, different church activities. Actually, I had to dip out of a ACLC prayer dinner to be here, but yeah, nice to see everyone here. So for tonight's hundoke, yeah, I looked at Eyepiece TV and it's crazy. Like every week there's some big event or like multiple big events that your mother spoke at or was a part of. So even like as we're on this call, True Mother is getting ready to speak in Cambodia. So it's just amazing to see everything that's happening. So for today's hundoke, there's a couple of quotes from the victory celebration. There was another sub-regional rally in Korea. And yeah, the words that we're going to read, I think it's really powerful because True Mother is really speaking about the like connecting with Christianity and she quotes the Bible offhand. I've never seen True Parents like they are true Christians. And anyway, so yeah, let's hear Mother's words. Thanks to True Parents, you came to know both God's essence and Jesus's essence. Do you remember Matthew 7:7? Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. What are you afraid of? Today's Christians should recite this verse hundreds of times, nay, thousands of times, and then search for the Unification Church. The person that Christians have waited for and the one they ought to be looking for is the only begotten daughter. There's no doubt that the Korean people have been particularly blessed and protected by God for a long time. Therefore, it is not the politicians who are the owners, but the owner is God, the Creator, the Heavenly Parent. True parents are the ones working to realize Heavenly Parent's dream. Humanity and this country can be blessed as children of God only through true parents. This is such a bold, beautiful, and good thing for which we should be grateful. You have to tell them, only those who love true parents, and at this time, especially True Mother, the only begotten daughter, can take charge of the townships in this country. You have to say, accept their teachings. I hope you all move forward with confidence and authority. So I found these words really powerful. I think it really mothers, everything that our movement right now is focusing on, and we're going to hear later tonight about the events in Washington, D.C. I think that really is an example of what True Mother's talking about. And I was really moved by her words. Sometimes even like an hour ago, I was at the ACLC meeting, and sometimes I have the feeling like, we're trying to help Christians to come like join our cause, be a part of what we want to do. But it was interesting. As I was at this prayer dinner, I was talking to these ministers who've been with ACLC for a long time. And I realized like they have such a deep heart for God. They want to see God's children come into oneness. And, like what Mother's talking about, it's not like we're trying to get them to join our cause, but, true parents are the ones who understand God's heart so deeply. And they're showing the people of faith who have been prepared by God, who stand on, the 2,000 years of Christian foundation, how do we best actually fulfill what we are each called to do from our unique faith background. So anyways, it's amazing. There's more to this speech on iPeace TV. Anyways, that's the gift for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, I think that point is pretty timely. It's a shift of thinking in terms of how we're interacting with our Christian brothers and sisters, and I think is kind of the foundation for all the things that are happening right now. And which leads great into our different sharings tonight. So we're gonna, there were several events that happened in Washington, D.C. this past weekend. So we get to hear news fresh off the press. We're gonna hear about the actual program, the main event, the luncheon, and then the youth concert that was afterwards, along with the special and almost spontaneous state pastors meeting. A few days notice, everybody came out for a special appointment. So lots of exciting things are happening. And I was able to be at all of them, and I wanted to just share my experience at the luncheon. Actually I wasn't part of the planning process, so I got to just experience and watch it, and not even knowing what the program was, which is good, actually. It's good to just be a participant and wholeheartedly invested. And what was interesting is, out of the several hundred that were gathered there, 70% of them were not our members, so mostly guests and pastors, which I think was really beautiful testimony to the hard work our members are making. And this had a different flavor to it than previous events. We're in DC, we're in the Capitol, so it's closer to the heart of the political debate and things that are happening. So there was, they featured different political components and connected to, different previous congressmen and things like that. And the theming of the whole event was bridging the American divide. And they applied that to many different facets. And the first one was about the divide between Republicans and Democrats. And they had an interesting way of going about it, where they featured a Republican and a Democrat previously serving, and they had them sit together on the stage, first introduce themselves and share about their experience in leadership in that type of realm. But then they sat together and they talked about how peace could be possible between these two opposing sides and how reconciliation could be possible. And it was really interesting to hear their points of view and to see, people with that level of leadership having that important conversation, that you could see that could be ripple effects for the future. And Dr. Jenkins announced that this type of interaction is what they want to begin working with in the political realm, is bringing harmony and unity between the different sides, working together with the head wing, God wing kind of theology. And they did a similar practice. They had Bishop Mears, who's a very famous, huge church in Maryland. He came and shared along with Bishop Stallings, and they were talking about, one of them was a white pastor and Bishop Stallings is Black, and they were talking about the racial divide and how both of them, even in their own lives, have worked to bring harmony and peace in that kind of relationship. And, it was interesting because you can see how natural it is for our true parents' vision to be brought into that conversation. So as Bishop Mears was sharing a really great talk and his great perspective, Bishop Stallings was connecting it to Mother's vision and what she's been working on. And it was very natural. It wasn't forced. It wasn't, oh, this is the most important thing to talk to. It just followed naturally. And, I was sitting at a table with, this church that I've been sharing about, that I've been visiting the last couple months. I sat with them and they brought their whole team, the one pastor, and they have a bunch of young deacons and assistant pastors. And, the one pastor is very close to our church, went to Korea, and still is learning divine principle. But the rest of them have don't even know who Mother Moon is and don't even know anything about our church. They showed me the program and they point to Sun Jin Nim and they were like, "Oh, is that your pastor?" And I was like, how do I explain who she is to me? She's not exactly my pastor. She's not even, the international VP anymore. She works the WFWP. It was like a confusing conversation, but in their minds, she was my pastor, which is totally fine with me. Sun Jin Nim can be my pastor any day. And it was interesting to be watching what they were responding to. We were sitting in this round table and I was sitting in the back of it and just watching what they clapped to and what they responded to. And I could see, they weren't sure who Mother Moon was, but there wasn't like a negative reaction to it. It was just a very like, oh, okay, that's interesting to know. And their minds are being opened and getting familiar with who Mother is and the vision that she has. And it was fascinating to watch. And, I had a cute experience. They had a fancy lunch. And so we were all eating and the dessert was a cheesecake. And so we were eating our cheesecake and I look over and 3 of them had opened up their holy wine and poured it on top of their cheesecake, thinking that it was a sauce for the cheesecake. So when it came time for the blessing, and it was introduced as like a communion, we all just started cracking up like crazy. It's all good, like you got the holy wine in your cheesecake, it's okay, it made it just taste more delicious. But it was interesting to see the cultural difference. Like, the Prophet Maxim, who was there, he knew what it was for. We were looking at each other and wondering, should we say something? Do we make a big deal out of this? So we just let it go and we laughed about it and it was fantastic. So it was a positive experience for me to, here I have a picture to share, to be able to share that with these guys. Here's the prophet and here's all his deacons and assistant pastors. And, culturally, many of them, their French is their primary language. So usually I'm the one who isn't always following the conversation. This time around, I was helping them, understand what was going on and what was being talked about. But overall, just a really deep experience. And then one other thing I just wanted to share, this is my mom here. And she, it's just interesting when you just open up to people and you have an open heart, things really happen. And my mom, I don't know if you could tell, she was moved to tears, but one of the brothers that Prophet Maxim brought with him was in Iran right before my mom came. My mom was a missionary in Iran, and this is a white guy, and they were both speaking Farsi to each other for like a good 20 minutes. And my mom just started like, crying, just so grateful to connect with somebody who was there at that same time and can relate to that. And it just brought up this deep conversation and deep connection with Prophet Maxim and my mom. And he kept saying, "Oh, I'm going to come visit you. We need to talk. I'm going to come visit you." So I just share that to, encourage us to just be open, because crazy things are happening, and I'm not doing anything special. I'm just showing up and loving people and hugging people, and deep conversations are coming about as a result of it. At the end of this luncheon, Sun Jin Nim was the main keynote speaker, and she spoke for a long time. And one of the things that was so incredible, Sun Jin Nim has shared at YAM events often, and she shares very deeply and very sincerely. And usually, I think in my experience, when she speaks at these formal occasions, she doesn't go to that level because it's a very vulnerable place to be. But at this speech, she shared so tearfully and vulnerably about what it was like to grow up as the daughter of true parents, and how she only saw them maybe 1 month out of the whole year. And you could tell the whole crowd was just like shocked to hear that. And she shared about how painful it was, questioning what is this? And I don't feel loved, and all the struggles that would come about in that kind of lifestyle. But she shared about how she came back to True Parents, and how True Father, before she went out for a while, said, truth is truth, whether or not you believe in it. And I know you will come back. I know you will find the truth. I know you'll find your way back. And eventually she did. And she's, it was so beautiful. Many of the people at my table were in tears from it because it was so sincere. And the thing that really moved me was afterwards, Dr. Rouse got up there and had the whole audience stand up and face her. And he took responsibility and apologized to Sun Jin Nim's couple and all the true children for the way that they grew up, especially from the Christian clergy, who chastised them and brought so much pain to their family because of what True Parents were doing. And I thought it was really significant. I thought, I don't know a better way to say this, but it was very nurturing and almost motherly from Dr. Rouse to have everybody give this kind of energy to Sun Jin Nim, and as a whole group take that responsibility, even collectively. Even though many people didn't understand how significant that was, I think it was meaningful and spiritually significant, and a condition for whatever healing to happen on that type of level. So I'm really grateful for Dr. Rouse and that kind of internal leadership, because that's a vulnerable place too, to take responsibility for not something you did personally, but for who you represent. And I thought that was really beautiful. So it was a great event, good musical entertainment. Miyambi, she was the MC. If some of you know her from Atlanta, she did a great job. It was great to see her on stage. And yeah, I had a really wonderful time. I was grateful to be able to attend. So now I'm going to hand it over to Natascha, who, by the way, you guys, Natascha has been working her butt off. Oh, sorry, someone asked who were the congressmen. Yeah, one was Doolittle, and one was a woman. Natascha, do you know the name of the woman?
I just know she was from California, but I don't remember her name.
Yeah, and she just finished her term, I think, this year or last year. I'll try to find it and I can put it in the chat once we find the name. So to introduce Natascha has been working like crazy to put together this youth concert. And I will say that I wasn't involved in anything, which really shows the level of ownership that Subregion 2 had. And they were having many meetings, even I didn't know about. And then when I finally got in the picture, everything was already planned and I got to just sit back and relax, which was awesome. But I know Natascha and her team worked incredibly hard to mobilize and prepare an amazing program following the main luncheon. So I want to welcome Natascha and let her share her experience.
Yeah, thank you, Kaeleigh, and thanks everybody for having me. So I'm going to talk about the concert, but also a little bit about leading up to it. So basically, we've been planning this since September, roughly the start of September. We had kind of a kickoff meeting at the house of our Secretary General, Jun Suk Moon, and invited just generally young adults from the area, from the DMV, and then we told them that, we want to support True Parents and contribute something as young adults to this event. So, because we know the luncheon is focused on clergy, right? We also wanted to involve young Christians in a way. And after some brainstorming and going back and forth on what's the best plan, we settled on doing a concert. But we didn't want it to be just a concert with only music. We also wanted to have some valuable content in there, so some short messages. And really from the beginning, the idea was to include as many outside churches as possible, right? So that was the main challenge, of course, other than doing outreach to get people to come, was to find speakers and performers from other churches to come join us in this endeavor. So yeah, it was a struggle for a long time, I have to say. There were times when we were like, I don't know if we could do this, and just like, all right, we may have some musicians, but We don't know about speakers. Maybe we don't get any, and it's just going to be our members, you know. So there was a lot of back and forth. But finally, thanks to hard work of a few of the young adults in our area, as well as the collaboration with the pastors, we were able to do it. So I have to say, we wouldn't have been able to do this without, for example, Pastor Achille Akolatsi, who's the pastor of the D.C. Family Church, you know, and then we had support of the other pastors as well. But yeah, Pastor Akolatsi as well, especially got us 2 of our speakers, and you know, he helped us to connect to churches. So part of the outreach we were doing was visiting churches, and I myself went to 2 of them. So one of them, the VCMI, it's the Victory Christian Ministry International, actually rents the Washington Times building every Sunday morning for their service. So it was actually ideal to get them involved because they know the place, they always come there for service, right? And they had like a great praise group that was like singing, right? So mainly singers, and it would be wonderful, we thought, to get them to come. And they loved us when we came to visit. They were very open and excited. But then they said, oh, unfortunately, our church is just opening up a new branch, and we're stretched very thin at the moment because part of our staff is going to be in Maryland and the other part in DC, and we don't know if we can make it. So we said, all right, we did our best, but they're very great people and we want to stay connected to them. So actually it was H.B. Jenkins, who some of you may know. He used to go by James Jenkins, but recently changed his name to H.B. So he consistently went to visit that church and attended their Bible study and stayed connected to them. And it was only, a few days before the concert, like this last week, when they called him and said, oh, a group of us are coming after all. And they, we got them in as a slot and to perform. So, it was just like things like that fell into place, and then there was one young speaker. She was a youth leader in the church called Temple of Praise, which is a mega church in DC. And I met her when I went to their Sunday service also 2 Sundays ago. And I love their service so much. It's very, very hyped up. I never experienced a service like that before. It's an African-American church, basically, and Baptist, and they do a lot of like praising and singing in tongues too, and like everybody claps and stomps on their feet and dances, like for 5 minutes straight as somebody is like on stage, drumming. And so it was very intense and very spiritual in a way. Actually, I went there with Jungsuk together, and we both thought it's a little bit like Cheongpyeong, like the kind of spiritual hype that they had. It was like everybody clapping, and it was like really like that, like clapping and jumping up and down. So it was very interesting. So I don't know, I felt strangely attracted to that church. And I really liked Jamika. She was there to welcome us. I had texted her to let her know we're coming, and she was really friendly. And I don't know, I immediately felt a connection to her, and I could see she really cared about her congregation, and especially like the young people came in the front of the church to pray towards the end of the service, and they had all of us come and like do a full bow, basically bow our heads on the ground and pray. And then Jamika was walking around between people and praying with them, so she was like one of the people who were doing that. So yeah, and then I talked to her and she said, oh, I would love to come to your event. I'm not sure yet because my pastor has to approve it, but I hope that I can come, So I prayed and prayed that she would be able to make it. And it was also like a few days before that, like within the week before the concert, that she said, yes, I can come. And I was like, thank you, God. Because yeah, I was so happy that she could make it. She gave such a beautiful short testimony. Like all the speakers, they had like 5 minutes, roughly 5 to 7 minutes to speak. And she used hers to really talk about bridging the divide, reviving DC, which was our title, was Bridging the American Divide, Revival DC. And, she really addressed this topic of how we should embrace ourselves first and find peace within ourselves before we can help others. And she even addressed the parents in the room, because at our concert we had youth and young adults, right? We had like high schoolers, even some elementary students, kids, and we also had some parents and some leaders attend. And so she told the parents, whatever God has given to your kids, whatever gift it is, whether it's to sing or to dance or, any other gift they have, please support them in that, and don't push them to be something that they're not. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I really liked that message. And I've stayed in touch, the concert was on Sunday, but I've stayed in touch with her through text since then. And I plan to visit her church again regularly. Like every fourth Sunday is a youth service at their church. It is like 3 hours away for me to go there. But because I live in Charlottesville, Virginia now, not exactly in the DMV, but I want to make the effort to go and visit their church whenever I can. And it's not just me, like HB, I mentioned, he's also connected to BCMI. And then we had other young adults from Maryland, Melissa Manor, she was a youth and young adult leader there. And together with a few other people, were visiting different churches and making connections with them. And, really the idea of this concert and doing this event is just the beginning, right? It's to start to reach out to other churches and build these relationships, right? And this was such a beautiful event because we could connect to people, and represent all these different faiths. And even though it was such like a rainbow of different program parts, it was like 50 minutes of this, 15 minutes of that, and 5 minutes of this, and there were so many parts to this thing, but it all fit together so beautifully, and that's really what I love to see, to show people that regardless of our theological differences, right, we can all cross these divides and just worship God together and talk about peace and what we all have in common. Yeah, so like I said, people have been inspired by this and they want to continue. They also want to maybe do more events like this. We'll see. This one was pretty exhausting to pull off, but maybe now that we've established some connections, it'll be easier next time. Oh yes, I also wanted to show some pictures. I think I'll just do screen share here. Okay. Yeah, these are just a few pictures of the concert. We had, this is Uche Favor, an African praise singer. She's got almost 10 million views on YouTube, and she happens to be friends with H.B. Jenkins. And he was the one who organized all the music, like had contact with all the musicians. So he did a phenomenal job with that. And yeah, it was great because her style of music was very different, and you see kids dancing in the front there. That's very cute. And then we had a saxophonist from Atlanta, and he was phenomenal, really, really great and powerful. And he even said a short message because he's a pastor too. So, everybody who came up on the stage, even if they're performing music, they're also involved in ministry in church somehow. And yes, that's an important part too. Our concert was also a benefit concert because we thought, well, if we're going to bring people together, we young people like to act, right? And to do something that's more than just get together and have fun. Let's have a higher, another higher purpose. So we were raising funds for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. And this is Miss Eleanor Gator. She represented the organization, and she just shared a couple of stories about, human trafficking and sex trafficking and how that's still prevalent even in the DC area. And, just talking with a couple of examples, like what we can do, to help with that. So yeah, we had created these t-shirts. I'm wearing mine today that we were selling, and these t-shirts are available online. So if anybody else out there in the US is interested to buy these, yeah, they are at Custom Ink. HB works for that company, and he helped make this design. It says "Bridging the American Divide." Peace starts with me on the front, and there's like the DC monument and the American flag. So some symbols there. Yeah, so we were selling those t-shirts, and then also going back to the music, we had the band from Florida. Some of you may have heard them perform before. Joe Young, actually he used to live in New York a while ago. Their band is really cool. So like I've heard them perform before, and every time they do, they just get everybody so excited and so into their music. And they really feel that through their music they're praying. That's their way of worshiping God. So it was great. And the final song, that was a song that was written by HB, and it actually had, as you can see in that picture, Champumonim, because of you. It had some Korean in the end of it, which was fun. Yeah, it was like a nice concluding song. Yeah, it's just showing some of the people dancing, and we had like a nice space for people in the center, and then chairs and tables in the sides for older people to sit, or anybody who was tired. And right, to arrange all of that and the stage and setting up, we had Amanda Hokinson, another BC, who's currently living in DC, and she was really helpful. So really, I mean, Kaeleigh says I worked very hard, but it was a lot of other people who worked hard. Like, I'm so grateful for people just stepping up and, helping with this, because one person alone can't pull this off. They carried somebody at the end. Yeah. They had a lot of fun, and that was the main thing. Like, I think the energy was very positive throughout. Oh yes, I forgot to mention that President Dunkley also made an appearance. He had to leave early because he wanted to drive back to New York that same night, but I'm grateful that he made it and he spoke to us at the start. Yeah, so that was the event. Oh yeah, somebody posted the link to the t-shirt fundraiser. Thank you, Sunwa. Sunwa also helped in her small way, because she helped us connect to the headquarters when we needed to get our event on the website and stuff. So thank you. And thank you to everybody for listening. If you have any questions, you can ask me. All right, back to you, Kaeleigh.
Yay. Sunhwa, can you unmute everybody so we can appreciate Natascha and her team for all their great work? Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, this kind of work is different. A lot of us have planned workshops and youth group events and things like that, and we know how to work within our own circle, and we know how to mobilize, but it's a scary thing to take on something like this, where your primary target is to go outwards. And you could see, all the musicians in the performances, and there was quite a variety of them, were fantastic. And you could see that they enjoyed it, and that there was some spark there, something that could be built upon moving forward. So I want to really thank Natascha and her team for trailblazing in a new direction and moving things forward, because this is really the direction that things are heading in the Providence. And if we put ourselves out there and we work together and we share our testimonies with each other, then we break apart some of the the roadblocks and the walls that are there, and then the rest of the road is smooth based on the foundation of others who are investing. So Natascha, thanks again for everything that you did. And we have one more testimony tonight from Pastor Mika, but I just got to say that every time I see Mika, I tell her every time, and maybe she's annoyed, but I am just so grateful that she exists. And, we don't get to have a lot of conversations these days, but when we do, I'm so grateful that another older sister lives this way and is passionate and is balancing her family life and her public life, but doesn't want to just sit by anymore, wants to be a part of the change and supporting our movement. So I'm really grateful for Mika, and she's going to share about the spontaneous few days notice state pastors meeting, which actually became very significant and a new turning point for our movement. So I'll give it away to Mika. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you to you, Kaeleigh. I told you, I'm grateful that you exist. And I'm grateful that all of you guys, exist. But even more than that, that we can be in this together and, just be living in this time. And actually going to Washington, D.C. for me was, it brought back a lot of memories, because the last time I was in the city was like about 11 years before, because I was working for CARP at that time, and we had like this really, I was there all summer, and that was when we were doing like the global peace festivals with Sun Jin Nim. And actually at that time, my role, like coincidentally enough, was to work with Reverend Bayo and to reach out to different ministers, and especially young clergy. So there's one young pastor who I have on my heart, and his last name is White. He's an African American.
I remember him.
Oh, you do? You
got
do?
great
I've been
eyes,
thinking
right?
about him.
Yes. Okay.
Is he still around?
No,
Is he
but
still
I'm
around?
on it, Mika. I'm gonna find
Okay,
him.
great.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes, let's find him.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting because it also I feel like I've just been reflecting on my experiences with our Christian pastors. My mother's ancestors came over in the early 1600s, and they came over as Puritans, and I've always felt very close to Christianity and very close to Jesus, and but somehow like over the years, I'm not sure what it is, but I feel a little bit like I've had this kind of distance or resistance, or maybe just some like frustrations that have come up for me when I think about working with our Christian brothers and sisters, right? And so it's been very interesting to make this to make a conscientious move to open myself and open my heart. And I think that at least for me, I feel like what it really comes down to is building trust. So anyway, I've been very busy. I actually, I'm co-pastoring with my husband in Connecticut, but also recently became the district pastor for New England. So I've been traveling around the different communities, and every weekend is just very busy. And so I was waiting to hear about this DC event, and I didn't hear like any kind of formal invitation. And I had even asked our leadership, multiple times, like, do I have to be there? And didn't hear anything. And so I remember I texted Milhan. No, I had a conversation with him, and I said, okay, I'm just letting you know I'm not going, because I did not receive an invitation, and I've been away from my family so much, and I'm just going to enjoy that day, and I'm just not going. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to go either. And then literally like a few days after that, there was a pastor call, and then they said, in 1 week, we want everybody to come, all 50 states represented, But yeah, the direction actually was very clear. So as you guys know, we had 40 ACLC pastors go to Korea and help to launch KCLC, which is something, that of course has been on True Parents' mind and heart for a long time. This was an effort I mean, way back. Father first reached out to the first Christian ministers in 1952 to tell them, that the second advent is here, and they couldn't accept that, couldn't unite, and so true parents, recognized that they had to go directly to America as a chosen nation, and build that foundation. America's role, right, is to recognize, proclaim, protect our true parents, and really, in serving the world, really help the world to come together in unity, centering on true parents. So that foundation was meant to then go to Korea and support the reunification of North and South Korea. So, having these Christian clergy go there this time and to really, bring this kind of success. There were 400 ministers that signed on, just like unheard of kind of, like reciprocation from our Christian pastors, who I think many, many times, the moment that they are associated with our movement in Korea, they lose their jobs, they lose their positions. So anyway, Mother, is just started talking right away to Dr. Kim about our 50 states. And she has said this before, even last year when she was here for the Nassau rally, she spoke to all the leaders afterwards and said, you are the leaders of this nation. It's not the political leaders, who maybe hold that job for, like the president who holds his position for a maximum of 8 years, because you follow God, then you are meant to be the leaders and the owners of this nation. And, when I think when True Mother thinks of our blessed families, she's really looking at the leader of each state as like the president of each state. She kind of looks at every state as its own nation, and therefore, upholds the value of that state, such that, with the restoration of a state, it can be equivalent to the restoration of our nation. So she wants to see America be victorious. And, we know that Mother is going to be concluding her world tour, and she's coming to America, and then, making this world proclamation of a heavenly unified world. And we need America's help to do that. So yeah, having these state leaders in place is very important, but not only to have state leaders in place, but also to have a key Christian clergy in place working together with our state leader, is something that has so much power and potential. Especially as our Christian ministers come to understand more and more deeply, God's providence and who true parents are. So, for me, this was really a godsend. Even in the reorganization of our nation into 5 subregions, I really felt like Mother is loving us so much. She cares so much about us, and she wants really, truly, for a system to be put in place so that all of her children, all of her 7.6 billion children of the world can really, be connected to, the lineage of heavenly parents and true parents. So yeah, I was personally concerned about how to bring this kind of unity in my area. And we have, one key minister who's been doing a lot of educating, and she's one of the 172. And anyway, it was it gave us that excuse to be together. So we drove down together, and then we drove back together, and just naturally, we could share with each other and get to know each other a little bit better. And I've just, that's the thing that's been coming to me is this realization that it's about building trust. And I really want to build that. And I think that having this rally is also another excuse, to just keep working together more and getting closer together and finding out together like what it is that God wants for our specific area, within our specific, realm of influence. It's like, what does our community, what does our state really need? And Connecticut's a big one, because it's a place where true parents suffered a lot. And, Bridgeport was always a beacon, a hope. And so I think about that, and I think sometimes like all of us spread all over the country, it's like, true parents invested so much, years and blood, sweat, and tears into, our different respective areas. And I think sometimes it's hard to feel like, is it still worth it, kind of like, have we really, done our part to really, uphold what our true parents have invested in? Like, we ask this question all the time: is it really worth it to stay in the south end of Bridgeport? But then, like at that event on Saturday at the luncheon, when Dr. Rouse had everybody stand up and to turn towards Sun Jin Nim and her couple and to really say, on behalf of all Christianity, like we really repent, for how much we didn't understand about our true parents and, God's will to raise up this nation. And I just feel like that's the place where we can really, just move forward powerfully. It's like that, being able to just step out for a minute and recognize that, we all have shortcomings, but the point is, we're in a new space. And, Mother is riding the jet stream, and she's asking us to just follow, and, and then we can make this happen, and we can really, create something amazing. One of the members in Rhode Island was saying, I just feel so shackled in my space. As a unificationist, she's from Austria or some European country, but she was like, when I go to these big rallies and they have this like, gospel music, she's like, I just can't get into it. And it's so foreign to me. She's like, and I just feel so like shackled in my own space. And, it doesn't mean that like, she has to be like disingenuous or something like that, but we just were kind of having a conversation about just to be open our minds a little bit and recognize, like that how much people can be touched by God, and we can do it in a space, all together. And anyway, one last thing that I'm going to mention, in the car ride back, one of our pastors that we were driving with, there was all members, he was saying, I wonder, like, Sun Jin Nim didn't really say much about Jesus, and I wonder, does that matter, when you're in a Christian, when you have a predominantly Christian audience? And then another pastor was like arguing, like, how could you ask these kind of questions, like how could you even think that, like she knows what she's doing, and then it was interesting because the apostle that I'm working with, she chimed in and she was like, it doesn't matter if you talk about Jesus, like you don't have to talk about Jesus to relate to Christians. She said that Sun Jin Nim was sharing about how she was moved by God, and everybody could feel that, and Christians are God-loving people, and that's what matters, is that we're talking about the love of God and we're sharing, from that space. And so anyway, I feel like that's where I'm at, is like to be open, to open myself to work on, you know, this relationship of trust and what we can build together. And I think also just honoring each other's experiences, and, you know, recognizing that our Christian brothers and sisters come on such a foundation of, you know, totally, you know, sacrificing their lives and everything for their faith. So it's like, you know, from a historical point of view, you know, yeah, they are incredible people. And so, you know, it's like to come together with that kind of heart of humility and openness, I think, is what's most important. And anyway, I'm excited to see what we're going to build, what we're going to create moving forward. So yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Let's give Mika a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, this kind of leadership, I think, is where it's at, Mika. Thank you for your honest and vulnerable and genuine sharing about trying to trust and taking those difficult steps, but being renewed through that process. I really feel like that is where it's at for our generation, that we are looking for these authentic, meaningful experiences. And thank you for paving that way for us, Mika. You know, what struck me about that whole spontaneous state pastors meeting was really understanding that, you know, up until this point, ACLC has been like this side project of Family Fed, and we've been very separated. But from this point forward, and the significance of this appointment is that the Family Fed pastor and the ACLC, you know, coordinator pastor, Christian pastor from each state, they're working hand in hand from this point forward. It's not separate anymore. And if these two can unite, you know, in a loving, genuine relationship, then that's the foundation by which restoration is possible for that state. And to me, that's beautiful. I think that's really exemplary of Mother's leadership and her style. And it's very hopeful for me that that is the direction we're going. So it's really exciting to see it coming to fruition, and Mika going in that process. And we're excited to hear how things develop, Mika. So we've got just a few more minutes on the call, and I'm not sure how many of you saw a memo or connected, but today marks 40 days until December 28th, which is the rally in Newark. And True Mother has asked us to do, it's an international condition, not just our nation, but a 40-day condition in preparation for this rally, because it's the launch of the World Clergy Leadership Conference. You know, Mother is in Cambodia right now. I think they're working on the live feed on Peace TV. You can watch her speech shortly. And she's traveling everywhere, but even within all of that chaos, she's thinking about December 28th and asking the whole world to make offerings of devotion and Jeongsung in preparation for this. So I know it's another rally, another big event, sometimes hard to feel so connected to, but I want to encourage all of us to consider what offering we can make over these 40 days, because I know that when I make a condition and I make an offering, I feel more connected because of my investment. So I know some people, I've talked about it with my YAM team, some people are, you know, reading or listening to Godable with their spouse and sharing about it, or have a certain number of people they want to invite to the rally that are not within our faith, different things like that. So feel free to be creative. And we thought that a good way to end the call in the last 5 minutes is just to break out into Trinities and talk about this upcoming condition and what you would like to offer over these next 40 days. So Sunhwa, I will leave it to you to put us into groups and have a great sharing about what you want to offer for these next 40 days in preparation for December 28th. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Feel free to, you know, if you have a moment, drop your condition in the chat here and inspire each other about what we're working on these next 40 days. We just did want to briefly announce that we have a new YCLC website. It's yclc.info. You can check it out. And we'll be announcing new information about upcoming events for YCLC. And look, Josh just posted the link for True Mother, so definitely watch that. Let's all go watch that now. Have a great evening, everybody. God bless you. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Not
Bye.
Annie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.